Hi. So I don't particularly really know where to start off with this video. It being the first on my channel, most people would probably expect a channel trailer or an introductory video, but I've just decided to get into making and releasing the videos that I want to release. As the title implies, I am going to have a little rant about how removing the headphone jack is just completely stupid. And disclaimer, this video is completely my opinion and will also be biased because it is my opinion. Of course it's going to be biased. But in other videos I will be a lot more two-sided. I will look at both sides a lot more. This is kind of just more of a rant about why I think removing the headphone jack is stupid. So, here we go. First, we need to briefly go over the history of removing the headphone jack. So it started when the Oppo Finder was released in 2012. The Oppo Finder didn't have a headphone jack and used the micro USB connector for the headphones instead, as it came with an adapter. The same happened with the Oppo R5 in 2014. In fact, this phone when it came out was the thinnest phone on the market, but then another phone was released that was thinner, and we will be talking about this phone later on into the video. The Oppo R5 also used the micro USB connector for the headphones. When these phones released, the removal of the headphone jack didn't really catch on, and because of that it wouldn't be seen for another 2 years. But in 2016, another Chinese company called Leco, I don't really know how to pronounce this, released their new Le2 series phones, which had no headphone jack, and instead used the newly standardized USB Type-C port for the headphones instead. Here's a picture of the phone, and as you can see, the phone has no headphone jack, but it uses the USB Type-C port. Next, Motorola changed their Moto Z to ditch the headphone jack as well. At the time, it was probably the most well-known Android phone to ditch the use of the headphone jack, but infamously, its lower-end counterpart, the Moto Z Play, did use the headphone jack instead of the USB Type-C port on their phones. Here's a picture of them side by side, and as you can see, the Moto Z doesn't use a headphone jack, while the Moto Z Play does. And finally, the act that pushed many of the phone manufacturers to make the change and ditch the headphone jack. The iPhone 7 released in 2017. The phone ditched the headphone jack and used the proprietary Lightning port for the headphones instead. And because Apple did it, and they're considered the premium brand, and let's be fair, most people who buy Apple buy it because it's expensive and is considered the premium brand. I mean, they'll basically buy anything that Apple releases. Let's be fair about that, it is true. But anyway, the phone ditched the headphone jack and used the proprietary Lightning port, and it prompted many other phone manufacturers, in fact most phone manufacturers, to follow suit. Here is a picture of the iPhone 7 compared to the iPhone 6. As you can see, the iPhone 7 does not have a headphone jack. But why? Why would other manufacturers do this and remove their headphone jacks? It's obvious at the time. It was seen as a step forwards, when in reality it was a step backwards. It was something that didn't need fixing, but people just decided to fix it anyway. So far I've just given you a rundown of the history of removing the headphone jack, and haven't really talked about why removing it is stupid. So I guess it's time for me to start talking about why the headphone jack was removed and why it's bad to remove it. But honestly, I couldn't really find many points on why the headphone jack was removed, apart from two that I will be talking about in this video. Now, as I said before, I am biased on this subject, but in other videos I will be exploring both sides of the conversations. But this is a little rant, and this is all about my point of view really. The only real thing removing the headphone jack does to a phone, let's be fair, is just give it less features. For example, if a company says that a phone needs to have no headphone jack to be thin, that simply isn't true, as the Chinese company Vivo released a phone as thin as 4.75mm, and it still had a headphone jack, and that was the phone I referenced earlier. Here is the picture of the phone, and as you can see, it is super thin, while still using a headphone jack. Another reason that the manufacturers give is that there isn't enough room anymore for the headphone jack. But for some phones this simply isn't true, as a YouTube channel called Strange Parts, I'll put his link in the description to his channel and to his video, modified an iPhone 7 to include a headphone jack. I'll quickly brush over how he was able to do this. This is not going into detail at all, but he pretty much just moved a few things around in his iPhone 7, like the battery and a couple other things, and drilled a hole in the bottom. And due to that, he was able to fit a headphone jack inside. And to fit the headphone jack inside, he got one of Apple's Lightning port to headphone jack adapters and wired it up to the inside of the phone, which allowed him to have a headphone jack while also being able to use the Lightning port. It was a genuinely interesting video, and I do recommend you go and give it a watch. As I said, I'll leave a link in the description. You should also know, again, that I am just glossing over the process here, that there are many more steps involved, and I am aware that this is just talking about the iPhone 7 and not other phones, but there is still a point to be made about how a lot of phones will still probably have the room for the headphone jack in their design, even if they have to move a few things around. Now I can already hear people who will be in the comments saying that wireless is better, and in some cases, yes it is. And it can be more convenient for some people. And it is true that having no wires can be better for some people and more comfortable. But that isn't really a factor in this discussion, because having a headphone jack does not remove the ability to use wireless, vice versa. Now, I do personally prefer wired headphones, as they are more convenient to me and have better sound quality for a usually cheaper price. The headphone jack was an older way to use headphones, and it wasn't broken, but people still tried to fix it, and the fix was worse than what we had before. People even used to call out companies and tell them they didn't want it gone, but after the manufacturers decided to get rid of the headphone jack anyway, people just decided to deal with it. For some people, they preferred having the headphone jack, and besides, giving a phone less options is always a bad thing. I mean, if you bought something that let's say had 20 features on it, and a new model came out and it had only 19 or 18 features on it, but it came out with a higher price than the other one came out, it wouldn't exactly be right, would it? I mean, it wouldn't exactly be the worth the same, let alone more, and you probably wouldn't buy it. But with phones, people do. Now, another one of the reasons why the headphone jack can be better than wireless is because Bluetooth can be a pain. You can have issues with connectivity, and you definitely can have issues with the antennas in phones, because sometimes the phone antennas can just be blocked by your hand really easily, and it can cause stuttery audio. At least I have this issue. But anyway, I just want to remind you that this is my opinion, and that this will be the end of my little rant. And I want to end the video with a thank you for watching, and I hope you stay, and I hope you enjoy the content here that I will be releasing. I do stream on Twitch every Wednesday, Friday and Saturday at 8 o'clock PM London time. I will leave the link to my Twitch in the description if you would like to come in and watch one of the streams. And the last thing that I wanted to say is that if you would like to suggest a game for me to have on the background of some of my next videos, please leave your suggestion in the comments. Goodbye.